Figure 7.4, initializing the elements of an array in its declaration. In this example, once again, we're going to create an array, initialize it, and display its elements. And just to show you what the output is, you can see once again we have a 10-element array with a bunch of values in the elements of the array. The difference in this example is that we're introducing a concept called an initializer list at line 13. So in line 13, not only are we specifying that we have an array of integers called n and that the array has 10 elements, we're also specifying a set of curly braces to the right of this equal sign, and inside the curly braces we've provided the 10 initial values for the elements with index numbers 0 through 9. And by default, automatically the first element in the list will be placed into element 0 of the array, the second element will be placed in element 1 of the array, the third initializer in element 2, etc. So the curly braces that you're seeing here, a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, if you have fewer than the number of elements in the array as initializers, then the set of initializers will be placed into as many elements of the array as they can fill, and all remaining elements of the array would then be set to 0 by default. So for example, let's say I cut off the initializer list here, and I'll just comment out the rest of the line. When I recompile and rerun this program, you can see that only the first 5 elements got initialized and the remaining elements got set to 0. So as I've said previously, variables are not initialized for you by default in C++, but there are a couple of exceptions to that, one of which is when you provide an initializer list for an array. If you don't provide enough initializers, all of the elements that remain will be set to 0 or the equivalent of 0. Another thing you need to know is that if you have too many initializers, you'll actually get a compilation error. So let's throw an extra initializer on here and we'll try to build this project, and you can see here that we get a nice error message, too many initializers. So if you're going to hard code the number of elements in the array, you need to make sure that the number of initializers is equal to that number of elements or fewer than that number of elements. And then the final thing I want to mention is that when you provide an initializer list, you are not required to specify the number of elements in the array. What will happen in this case is that the compiler will automatically count up the number of initializers and figure out how many elements need to be placed into that array. So if I go run this program one last time, after it compiles, you can see that clearly it was still able to produce the output with the 10 array elements. And in this case, what happened is that it counted the number of initializers and used that as the size of the array when it was created.